little bit past noon, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Judy Fredericks. I'm the Wellness Liaison at the Center for Clinical Wellness here at Rush, and I come to you monthly to bring you a different topic in our wellness workshop. And this month we are talking about personal psychosocial needs. My hope is that you will unmute and make this conversation richer by sharing some things that have worked for you, and offer any questions that you might have. And we will get started right now. Thanks for all for joining. All right, so let's start as we always do with a grounding exercise. So if you will take a moment, you've been rushing, you've been doing things, multitasking, whatever it is. So now that you're sitting still in front of your computer, what I'd like you to do is sit back in your chair, put your feet on the ground, put your hands on your lap, and just take this moment. There's a couple of things that I'd like to remind you about, and one is about the calming hold. So a very easy one, if you are feeling a little overwhelmed or feeling the anxiety, is that universal sign of calming. Just hand over your heart on your chest. That will calm your brain. Even better, if you can look outside while you're doing that and look at green-gray, that green-gray color calms your brain. Taking 3 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And if you want to go one step farther, there's a calming hold that we've talked about before, and that's taking your right hand underneath your left arm, left hand up over your shoulder, pressing down on that neural pathway, and again, taking those deep breaths. And if that's uncomfortable, come back to your hand over your chest. And what I'd like you to do is just kind of close your eyes, allow your shoulders to soften, and just listen to my voice for a moment. I'd like you to breathe in and feel that power of kindness wherever you are, whether you can imagine yourself on a beach, near a waterfall, in a comfy chair, in the clouds, whatever is comfortable for you. I want you to hold on to that image. Taking those 3 deep breaths again, in through your nose, out through your mouth. I'd like you to try to remember a time when someone or a beloved pet was kind to you. Allow yourself to feel the kindness and the warmth. Imagine this person, this being, gazing at you with understanding, kindness, and compassion. Imagine this person wishing you well, possibly saying these words: may you be safe and protected. May you be healthy. May you be held in kindness and compassion. Sit with that feeling for a moment, picturing where you are. Deep breathing, calm. Take one last deep breath and stretch. Out in front of you, over your head, behind your back to open up your chest, and take that last deep breath. I'm glad you're all able to join us. This is the February version of our wellness workshops. As you can see that we are here every month, twice. We repeat the same talk twice. Next week it will be at 6 p.m. So if anybody does want to join again, please do so. And that we will continue through April. So hopefully you can continue to join us. All right, let's get started. So we want to start with just the idea of common psychosocial needs. Recognizing the challenge to meet those, especially nowadays. We're 2 years in, right? So maybe some strategies about the need for consistency and tolerance. And maybe you can actually pick 2 things or even just one thing that you could do for support that you could start today. And just thinking about the hierarchy of needs and think about where you are and maybe where your clients might be, that we may all have dropped down a rung in this, and to really be gentle with ourselves, to be kind. Just to start out on the same page, and I'm going to move that black box up here a little bit. Our definition, psychosocial, just the idea of things that relate to the interrelationship of social factors, your thoughts and behaviors. It's actually an influence of social factors on your mind and your behaviors. Things that can create stress, anything in your life situation that has an unusual or an intense level of stress, and we certainly have seen that. It can be a perceived threat to your social status, your self-esteem, your respect, and your self-worth. And then on the other hand, the wellness is a state of good mental, physical, and emotional health. And so we want to use those definitions throughout today. All right, what I'd like you to do is there's a link on the screen, mentimeter.com. Use your phone and go to that link. And when you go there, it'll ask for a code. And for those of you who are calling in, the code is 49225483. And I'd like you to think about some of the psychosocial stressors that you have in your life. Okay? So it's menti.com, just a quick survey. The code is 49225483. I'm going to actually stop sharing and go over to that site, because as you add on to this, you will be able to see everybody's answers in a word cloud. All right. And yes, you could Google the definition of it if you need to, but looking at the type of social stressors in your life, definitely illness, just not feeling on your game, relationships, injury, yes, challenges of mental health of any kind, definitely. Self-isolation, whether it has to do with COVID or just not being able to get out, the ability to get out, or just right now you feel safer. Being isolated is definitely a factor, and it can be a stressor. The desire to be out and be safe, to minimize risk, is really important. Thank you for everybody who's adding in. This is wonderful. Gray days, definitely. Whether it's an internal gray day or outside, it sure does make a difference when the sun is shining or you hear the voice of a friend. And so never underestimate what it's like to walk outside and breathe some air, or just call up somebody that you haven't heard from in a little while, or that you enjoy hearing from them. I think that's a really important thing, is that somebody who brings light into your life is really important. So the larger the font, the more people are adding to that. So illness, anxiety, and isolation is really the big three right now. Looks like anxiety, isolation, definitely. And to think about that, to think about how that impacts your life and what it is around you that you can grab onto to maybe lighten that load a little bit. Not that it'll go away, but maybe just lighten it, how you could look at it differently. And I'm not talking about Pollyanna type of things. I'm talking about shifting it and taking a look at what that brings to you and what you're able to do as far as reaching out for assistance. So I'm going to stop sharing now. We will come back to this because we will have a different one in just a moment. And we're going to just go back here. All right, so thank you again for everybody who did that. All right, so psychosocial needs. I think it's just important to think about that sense of safety, that you need calming and rest. You need to be able to calm yourself like we did at the beginning with that calming hold. You really need a peaceful environment. I really enjoy having a screensaver behind me that looks like I'm outdoors, because as I glance at myself, it's just really nice to see that. And I don't always get that. I think I get it more on Zoom calls. I get the option, and I don't get it for WebExes. So I really like to be able to see that calming background. So anything that gives you that peaceful environment. So self and community efficacy, I think that really has to do with your belief and the capacity to succeed. Will you be able to succeed? Will the community around you be able to succeed in whatever this disaster, this crisis is for you? And it can be just something in your life, or it could be a larger event like COVID, like any kind of unrest. Social connectedness, that includes therapeutic communication. To be able to talk about how this feels to you is really important. To have a good listener on the other end is critical. That yes, you probably have lots of friends and lots of colleagues, but you probably only have a couple of them that are really good listeners. Or maybe you want to connect with the Center for Clinical Wellness to be able to have somebody as a coach or a counselor that's what they do. That is their profession. And so kind of think about that. And then finally, hope, that living with gratitude, that includes spiritual connection. And if you missed the very beginning, we talked about sending a text with gratitude, thanking someone for being there for you, thanking them for just being a great friend, telling them that you love them, you miss them, whatever it is, just a quick text. And it's fun because it's not expected, and it just kind of catches them at a good, like kind of a sweet moment. These psychosocial needs were actually identified by Dr. Stefan Hopfel. He is at Rush. He wrote a paper several years ago highlighting these principles, and they have been used all over for psychosocial needs after a disaster. And I just think it's really appropriate, not that I'm saying we're in a disaster, but we are definitely in an elevated stress level that has gone on for way too long. And your level of cortisol has really been up there a long time and needs to calm. And so I do think that these things are appropriate to think about, that do you have these needs met? When you think about your challenges, things that create the anxiety, maybe you're turning to things to calm you, or you're turning to alcohol a little too much because of what's been happening. Maybe there's issues in your family. The stress of juggling home, work, and school is definitely critical. And so to consider what's happening in your brain when these challenges happen, that you all know about your amygdala, that you have that fight, flight, freeze center in your brain. And whenever something unexpected happens, right away that part triggers. When your cortisol level has been up for as long as it has, that triggers more and more often, and it stays up more and more often. So you're at a heightened awareness, which is actually really unsettling, and it creates kind of an irritability and a reaction that you may have not had 2 years ago. If you're rested, hydrated, feel supported, you shift from that reptilian center to that prefrontal cortex where your reasoning and your logic is. And that's really where you want to try to spend your time. So if you find yourself hyper irritable or hyper alert, think about where that fires in your brain and try to take that breath and shift it. If you're in a good place, you can shift that in 6 seconds. If you're dehydrated, even 2% dehydration, it will take longer to go from that reaction to that reasoning. So kind of ponder that about how this affects you and what kind of things challenge you. There are several roadblocks that do get in the way of calming a stress response that makes it longer to make that shift. One of the biggest ones is sleep. I know for a lot of you that are working and going to school, sleep, it seems like very far away. But if you can kind of think about at least getting 5 hours a night, at least 3 nights a week is important. If you can consider your circadian rhythm, thinking about what it would take to wake up and go to sleep within the same hour every day of the week, or at least 5 or 6 days out of the week, so that you can create a circadian rhythm. Because if you don't have one, you're actually dealing at a deficit every week. You're kind of jet lagged every week. And so no wonder you're waking up exhausted. The other things like conflict or stress, even dread about things that are uncertain, definitely have an impact on you. And so you need to think about how much negative scanning you do. And if you're able to shift that at all to some positive scanning, things that have gone well for you. There's a thing that we've talked about before called 3 good things. If you Google it, it is a thing. And you can write down, and it's important you write it down, 3 good things that's happened to you today. And so my best example is your socks match, or your laundry's done, or you're meeting a friend and you're going to have a meal so you don't have to think about dinner. So those kind of things, you would write that down at the end of your day. And at the end of 14 days, if you can keep it up for 14 days, it kind of makes a habit. And you start to think of these things a little bit sooner in your day, and you start to feel this positive psychology creeping in. You're creating these neural pathways that gets easier and easier to go to, this more positive thing. And it does kind of conflict or compete with the negative ones. So what you're hoping is you have more of these positive pathways happening than the negative ones. The negative ones absolutely serve a purpose. They're there to keep you safe, to keep you alert for any dangers. So you do need them. And also when you're in healthcare, you also need them to be good at assessing and identifying what might be happening. So yes, it does serve a purpose, but you've got to counteract it with that positive stuff. So see if you can't try that. Or if anybody has tried it, let me know. Put it in the chat and we'll take a look at that, and that would be great. So in that quest for psychosocial wellness, there's 5 things that we want to talk about. One is about being heard, about feeling protected, about being prepared, about being supported, and about being cared for. And identifying these areas of strength really do enhance your self-esteem by increasing your awareness and your communication skills. So I think it's important that we talk about each one of them. So the first one is to hear me. Anyone who is a frontline professional or student, your experiences are understood by leadership. Do you feel that you have the opportunity, you have a listening session, you have the ability to knock on a door and sit down and talk about your input, positive or negative, and that you have some kind of a feedback loop, that you are able to see that what you said was heard, and that it's on a list of maybe things to do, maybe wellness goals, that you really do feel acknowledged. And that's an important thing. I think the way that a lot of our university department and our hospital departments to have feedback channels are really important. This series, this wellness series, actually started in one of the universities here at Rush. It was an idea that came from the students during a listening session, and the dean went ahead and ran with it. And I think that's wonderful, especially by the numbers of people that check in every month. It does mean that there is some value in this. And so again, going back to your department, going back to your university and talking about how you could feel acknowledged. Use your student senate, use what's there so that you have that level of certainty in your life so you can experience that sense of order, and feeling heard is definitely there. Another thing that I just added to the bottom of that is the conflict resolution skills. These days when people are coming in, wherever they're coming to, already feeling irritated or agitated, it is really important that you also have good listening skills, because the person who's not feeling heard is the person that will escalate and do something, speak louder, swear, do whatever they need to do so that they feel they're being heard. So your ability to listen is really important as well. So kind of ponder that one. All right, the next one is protect me. That it does allow you to focus on work if you feel safe, that you're not always kind of looking over your shoulder, quote unquote. And I'm wondering if you can think of some of the ways that the university and the hospital is able to provide those types of things for you, that it allows you to build trust, allows you to quiet your mind, especially around the pandemic, that if you feel that there's a lot of risk for you, do you feel that that there has been safety things put in place for you, the access to vaccines, the access to rapid testing, the access to PPE, things like that, again, allow certainty in your life. And that's what's really important, that you have that sense of order, you have that ability to build trust. And whether it's feeling heard or feeling safe, building trust is part of that. Preparing you, I think whether it's being prepared in your coursework, that you feel that you have the underpinnings you need to go out into your chosen profession, or if it's something to have to do with clinical settings or your professional life, that it's really important, again, to have that sense of trust and feel acknowledged, that you have high quality education here, and are you able to feel that you can take advantage of all of it, because again, you can trust and you can feel safe. It is important to acknowledge that everyone is experiencing these challenges, and you just saw in that word cloud that there was a lot of common statements about things that were challenging. And so it's important that you do embrace connection, that you do recognize that there is interdependence. That's more important than trying to be self-reliant and independent, because that is such an isolating thing. These days, you do need a team. You do need to work together to brainstorm. You're better that way if you can be together. So allow yourself to work with others on a project, on a team thing, and then access support whenever you're faced with difficult decisions. If you aren't able to kind of get through that, if you're even experiencing that whole new syndrome that they're talking about with difficulty with decision making because of the high cortisol levels, because of the pandemic. So if you're finding yourself even simple things about what to have for dinner, you're not alone. That is definitely something that they're really finding a lot of that happening. So give yourself grace around that. All right, and what about support me? First of all, start with yourself. Be kind. Acknowledge your limits. There are limits to what you can do. There is a point in time where you do have to go to sleep. Your brain files important information during your sleep. And so if you've learned a lot today and you don't allow yourself to sleep tonight, all that good stuff isn't going to get filed. So give yourself that ability to save that information, process it, file it by resting or sleeping. The other thing is just to take a look at what you're doing, to refocus from that, giving everything all I got 24/7 to actually having some balance about when you should close that down, when you should take a rest. Even just 90 minutes, after 90 minutes of hard work, to walk away, go to the window, take those 3 deep breaths to come back. You're recentering yourself, you're shifting that neural pathway. It can actually change how you feel. And so that's a really important thing. Boundaries, again, are really important, and to recognize that, to be able to say no when you need to say no, and not just say yes because you think the other one wants you to say yes. That you're juggling your personal time, your family time, your child care issues. You've got a lot of things. So in order to make some boundaries, it's important to think about all that you're being called or pulled to do. If you don't have access to food or hydration, I think that's another thing that's really important. We actually talked about nutrition 2 months ago and identified that there may be students in your cohort that are having a struggle to provide food and hydration for themselves. And so there are places they can go. There is access for food. And so I think that's important that you take advantage of that, because your brain will work so much better if there is protein on board. And then for those of you who would like to take it a step farther, we've just started offering mental health first aid. And so you could take that. It's free right now at Rush. And it is an 8-hour day, but 2 of those hours are done ahead of time. So it's actually 6 hours in place. Some of them are on the weekend, on a Saturday. So if you do have the ability, or you could work it into the curriculum, you could get credit for it as part of your project. That might be a really good thing to think about. And if you wanted more information, it was in the wellness newsletter this past month. So you can go back to that, even go to the wellness website, and I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. But you can get information about how to register for that, or just find more information about that. And then finally, about caring for me. The idea that you do need to feel cared for, that a lot of times we are our worst enemy about that, that if you were your own best friend, would you give yourself different information, right? The idea that we do have access to spiritual support, whether you are in a community, a spiritual community in your home life, or whether you check in with the chaplain group here, or go to the meditation that happens at noon, or take advantage of any of the things that are spiritual support here at Rush, that is definitely something that will help you more holistically. Again, mental health coaching, to have a well-being advocate. It's kind of like having a coach for your workouts, but instead of for your physical being, for your mental health. And so the fact that it's free here at Rush, that's a really critical thing for students, for staff, or anyone that is in the Rush community. The other thing we did mention before is about lodging and food, that when you're asked to stay over or work extra, that you feel that you are supported by Rush. And I think they do a really good job of providing a room to stay in, or extra food for people that are working above and beyond. And so that's a really good thing. And then that you have emotional support, because there certainly is a lot of fear in the health risks and just the COVID exhaustion that we've been experiencing. So that support is just really a critical thing for you to build into your day, into your life. Now, when we talk about all these different things, unpredictable does not mean unsafe, that it still can be very safe, but it still can be very difficult to tolerate. And so it's the consistency that helps you. So that idea of just breathing deep, those 3 deep breaths are just very important that you're able to do that. To be able to take a brief walk, if you can, after 90 minutes of something that you focused on, to get up and move away, even 20 minutes into a talk, like right now, what we should do is take a break, look outside. So use that 20-20-20 rule that you can look outside, take a deep breath, look out about 20 feet for about 20 seconds. And again, that shifts that neural pathway in your head and brings you back and you feel refreshed. If you can drink some water, even chewing gum, so you have that sensation in your mouth, you can feel that on your tongue, you can feel the taste of that. It's a very good thing that you do to use your senses. If you can visualize relief, you can use self-guided imagery or breathing. And for those of you who were here at the beginning when we did those few moments of calm, that was actually meditation, that you were listening to my voice, so it was guided meditation. If you heard something that was distracting, you could identify what it was, allow your brain to calm, come back to the meditation. And then at that very end were those couple sayings about may you be safe, may you be healthy, those kind of things. Those are all very positive affirmations. So for those of you who grab your phone first thing in the morning to see what things happen during the night, maybe you leave your phone aside and do a little bit of that breathing and do a little bit of that positive self-talk. It just takes a minute, and then go ahead and stretch, get up, go to the restroom, and just kind of start your day before you grab the phone. And it just might really help. The other thing is just to reframe your situation. Think about how fast you go from hearing what's going on to something negative. And is there a way to reframe that or take that breath so you're able to move from reacting to responding? And just kind of check in on yourself to see how fast you do, how quick you react. And then relaxing your muscles, that guided relaxation. Lavender specifically is associated with decreased anxiety. You can do something as easy as getting a cotton ball and some oils, essential oils, drop it in the cotton ball, put it in a baggie, and kind of keep it with you in your pocket, in your backpack, and just take a breath of it. And it really does kind of shift things. It allows you to kind of calm. So that's a really easy thing. It also helps with stress and fatigue. It kind of brightens you a little bit. Another thing you can do is use a candle app on your phone, and they've got some very realistic candles now on the app, in the app store for free. And just for a minute, watch the candle as the light kind of shifts back and forth, and it distracts you just enough to take you away from all the things that's happening in the day, kind of like that Calgon Take Me Away commercial that was many years ago. The topic about writing it down is really important, and this is about worry, about things you have coming up. As long as you keep it in your brain, it ruminates, and your brain will try to fix it. And even if it's something that's not fixable, your brain will keep working on it. Even while you're trying to sleep, it will keep working on it. And if you've got some things that are coming up that you're worried about, I bet you wake up about 3 or 3:30 in the morning, and the first thing you do is you think about that issue. If you had paper next to your bed, you would write down these issues and maybe put a star by the one you're going to tackle that next day. You will actually allow your brain to calm. And this is something you can challenge me on. I want you to go ahead and give that a try and let me know if that works. Or if anybody has tried it, let me know if it works. But it's the act of writing it down. That's the really important thing that you have to think about. All right, so let's think about some wellness goals. Let's think about some things that you might be able to do. And if you're thinking about wellness, you want to think about that body, mind, and spirit, because if you build that resiliency, each one of these things does lead to resiliency. And if you have that resiliency that continues to build up, it's not an endless vessel. It's something that you have to continue to fill. But once you have it and you continue, you've got a good pattern of refilling it, it does create empathy, humility. It does allow you to give to others. It does give you that extra energy that you're able to do. And I think that's an important thing, that you do fill that vessel regularly. You think about what it is that you need, whether it's 5 minutes of meditation or if it's affirmations or relaxation. Use Headspace, use Calm, use one of those things that you have. I thank you, Oscar, for repeating the code. I didn't see that before. All right, so I appreciate that you took care of that in the chat. Thank you. And just be able to consider what you need to do. Resting your mind doesn't mean sleep. It just means to allow yourself to rest. And again, the mindfulness piece of that is to close your eyes, to relax, to kind of think about your muscles and relaxing them and tensing them and just kind of breathing, noticing any distractions, allowing that distraction to occur and come back to your breathing and just relaxing and tensing your muscles. So that's really good to have that awareness. That's important. All right, so you think about, it's easy for me to say that. True, it is. It's easy for me to say that because I'm doing the presentation, but you just might not have the energy to do it. And so I want you to think about the fact that self-care is not a luxury, but actually it's a necessity. It is about balance, and it doesn't have to be over the top to have a meaningful impact. It could be the apple that you put in your backpack and that you get hungry and you're distracted because you're hungry and you know that you're not going to get to lunch in a little while, but that apple with that fiber is going to pull you through until you're able to actually sit down and have a meal. Something like that, that can be enough to get you through that day. And so I want you to consider this saying by Simon Bailey, who said, "Who you think you are not is what holds you back." So all the negative self-talk is what holds you back. So again, think about how fast you go to the negative. And if you're able to do the 3 good things exercise, or if you're able to kind of shift your perspective a little bit, I think that might be helpful. Time management can be something that can be helpful. And again, a coach or a counselor can help with that. But if you have a list of things to do and you can cross them off and actually celebrate them, say, yeah, I did it, or even send a text to somebody. I have a very dear friend that when we complete a task, we send it to each other and we celebrate it and we laugh over it because it's silly, but it feels good. And again, it's that endorphin release. It's bringing down that cortisol level. So we're doing something for ourselves. There's another thing about that worry, again, to be able to write it down. I think that's a really important thing, that you make room for worry. There's actually a YouTube video, a different approach about making room for worry. Jackie Henry is the person who does that, just like a 10-minute, a 10-second kind of thing, but really very easy to be able to access. All right, so let's think about some of these things about reframing. I've talked about this a couple of times, and about being able to switch the script. And I think that's important to kind of consider that. So instead of saying, I'm a student, I can't add one more thing to my day, or it's easy for her to say that, she's doing the lecture. Yes, you're right. What if you thought about this next piece? If you even read it out loud, to say, I'm feeling tense because there's a lot of competing priorities. That is absolutely true. If I include a breathing exercise, or I take advantage of that worry time, writing things down when I feel stressed, I'll have a better focus and get the task done. Would that be possible? Could you try that? So maybe that's something that you would be able to switch the script when you start to feel a little anxious. Right? Another example is, if I don't take control of this project, I'm worried that I'm not going to get the outcome I'm hoping for. What do I do if that happens? And that's that whole idea about working independently versus having that interdependence, so working with a independent group. And to think about the consideration that it is a group project and that each person has their part, and there is some skill sets out there that you could actually take advantage of if they're on your team. And so by focusing on things you can control, like everybody agrees to feedback, everybody agrees to meet at a certain time on a certain day, everybody agrees that there's going to be teamwork. And that way you can better manage the stress when it starts to bubble up, when you start to get nervous that the project's not going to work. So you do have to have some agreements and some ways to be able to step aside if something's not working and have a conversation. But definitely a group project allows for some decrease of that social isolation, sharing of some great ideas, just to share your brilliance. I mean, it's just so great. The project will be better for it. So to be able to kind of engage in that. So what would make it easy to make wellness the easy route? So like if you opened up your refrigerator, if you had crunchy things that were cold and already cut and washed, and you could grab it, instead of grabbing maybe the slice of cheese that's in there, or instead of grabbing chips out of a vending machine, what would make it easy? So I want you to think about your day, and we're going to do that Mentimeter thing again, and consider that wellness is the act of practicing healthy habits daily for better physical, social, and mental health outcomes. So again, that's consistency. Consistency combats uncertainty, which definitely can calm your cortisol. So again, that's a really good thing. So let's take a look at this next slide. Same thing, go to that same site at menti.com, 4922-5483. And when I switch to the other screen, that code is also on the other screen, so not to worry about that, all right? So I'm going to stop sharing this for a moment. I'm going to go back to our Mentimeter. And the question again is identify one thing that you could keep doing, so make it something easy, that you could start today toward your wellness. And there's a great quote that change is an opportunity to do something amazing. So yes, bring your lunch to work. When do you make your lunch? Do you do it while you're making dinner? So like you make a little extra salad or you make a little extra something and that can be your lunch. And then it's already done. You don't have to think about it. Hydration, very easy. Like I said, 2% of dehydration definitely makes a difference in how fast you can shift. Deep breathing, yes, 3 deep breaths. And if you're very anxious, another thing about the breathing is asynchronous breathing. So it would be breathing into the count of 4, holding it for a moment, and exhaling to the count of 7. So the fact that it's unusual like that is just like mindfulness. It actually kind of takes your mind away from your emotion and focuses. And the Navy SEALs use that when they're feeling stressed. So think about that: 4, take a break, and 7 in order to have that breathing. So thank you for that. Yes, hydration has been very big. And I think that that is the simplest thing to do. Not always buying a bottle of water, but bringing your water bottle. I bet you got a bunch of them on your shelf in your cabinet at home. So, break out one that you like and get a good hook and hook it onto your backpack, and you'll be able to have that. So I think that's really good. So yeah, it looks like hydration, drink more water. That's like the easiest, most sustainable thing you can do. I like that somebody mentioned about getting to bed on time. There's a whole thing about bedtime routines, and you know how important it is for little kids to have a routine. That doesn't change when you get older. It absolutely is something that you need to tell your brain it's about time to go to sleep. And so once you brush your teeth, that could be the start of the end of your day. And try to include turning off your blue screens, your phone, your TV, your iPad, before you close your eyes. So maybe a half hour before you go to bed, turn all that off and do some other things. Maybe organize your sock drawer, maybe read a chapter in your book that you've been meaning to get to. Just some calming types of things that are different from that blue screen, because that blue screen creates activity in your brain, and that's not what you need at the time of sleep. You need to be able to rest. So try to do that, see if that works. So thank you, everybody that shared that. That was wonderful. I really love it. And yes, say no every once in a while. That is such a good thing. And consider why you're saying yes. That's even a more interesting thing. You do a whole thing on that, why you're saying yes. But most of the time, people say yes because they were caught by surprise, and they think that that's what the person asking the question wants. And so you end up saying yes, and then you're like, why did I do that? I am not the right person for that, or I don't have time for that. I'm not, you kind of go through all the things that you wished you would have said no for. So being able to calm yourself and be able to say no is really a very good practice if you could try that. All right, so we've been talking about all the stuff about well-being and that whole idea about calming. And so you do want to recognize the stress in your body. You do want to recognize whatever that signal is that you're becoming anxious, your heart rate, respiratory rate. Maybe your face gets a little flushed. Maybe there's distraction. And so you want to use that calming hold if that's something that can work for you. It's so subtle that you're able to do that even if there is a client, an instructor, professor, a friend that's just getting a little bit off their game and you're feeling that stress in your body, that you can calm yourself down. Controlling your breathing is important, and I did mention earlier about breathing into the count of 4, holding it for a moment, exhale to the count of 7. That's definitely something that's above and beyond the 3 deep breaths that will allow you to calm. Another thing is looking at the big picture, and this is literally. So when you're stressed, your view gets very small, and so you begin to react to this very small view of what's happening. If you physically take a step back, it allows your brain to slow your thinking and widen your visual field. And you can actually think about, will this matter next week? Just kind of give yourself that grace. You want to be able to name your feeling. For many people, they can feel upset or anxious or what it is, but they don't know what it is that's causing it. So maybe just stopping to think about how you're feeling, what it is that you're feeling in your body, in your gut, what is that feeling, can help with your calming, because then you know where to go with it, right? Once you assess it, you know how to fix it. One thing at a time. I know we're really good multitaskers. If you're a student and you're working too, you are great multitaskers. But I got to tell you something, you're only doing one thing well. And so you really have to step back a little bit and think of time boxing and see if that would help better. You set your clock, your alarm for 20 minutes or 50 minutes, and you just power in and you go through whatever it is that you're doing, and you do not look at anything else. You do not look at text, emails, nothing. You just focus in, get it done, and then you go to the next thing, and you will feel really good. You can check it off that list that you made earlier, right? Your worry list, you can check it off that list. Think about caffeine. That's a very simple thing that you can shift in your life. You want to keep below 200 milligrams. I know some of you, have caffeine running through your veins, but if you can think about that, if it's affecting your ability to rest at the end of your day, you might want to consider that. There might be different ways to calm yourself instead of the caffeine. And then sleep, it's definitely a sweet spot is 7 hours. I don't know if you have that luxury at this time, but that's the time that your brain can do the calming, can do the filing. Your eyes and your ears can have that quiet time. And so that definitely is something that you'll be able to do. Turn off notifications. Thanks, Peg. That is very big, because what do? As soon as you have the notification, your brain's curious, and it's going to be running about you wonder what it is while you're trying to focus on something. So you have to give it up and you have to go look, right? So you turn off notifications. I think that's really important. The idea about the consistency combats uncertainty, and uncertainty is what feeds that cortisol, that high cortisol level. So to be able to calm that, consistency is so important. So even that little thing like a bedtime routine with that consistency definitely can calm. So thank you for putting that in the text or in the chat. And Cheryl, thank you for talking about giving me a little support on that idea that it does work to write it down. Keeping a writing pad at your nightstand, absolutely. Especially if you guys are finding yourself waking up around that 3:30, that's a sleep cycle, and that's definitely something that will bring you to alertness and just make you think more about it. So yeah, write it down. Definitely seeking a mentor, a well-being advocate. It's good if you have conflict or difficult scenarios that you practice them and you say them out loud so that your brain gets used to that. That's just like doing mock codes. You're setting down those neural pathways. It gets easier and easier to get back to them instead of being worried about the scenario that's coming up and never really kind of working through what you would say and having to say it for the first time when you're in the middle of it. That's very difficult. Right, So we are all resilient and courageous, but sometimes we just need tools and support to help us access what's already inside us. And so I want you to think about wellness being an active pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles, including the practice of gratitude that leads us to a state of holistic health. That's really important that you think about that full definition. And that the ideas around consistency is really important, that you have something that you look forward to do each week. So maybe you do the same yoga link each week, or maybe you start with the same stretching every morning, or maybe on your way into work or school, you turn on, there's actually a comedy channel you can go to and hear like bad dad jokes. So you're like groaning and it's funny and you have that endorphin release and it feels good before you start your day instead of worried or hearing the news over and over and over again. That's so important. You can also request a coaching session around this question, and I'll talk about the Center for Clinical Wellness in just a moment. But what I'd like to do is take a moment to acknowledge the grief that some of you are feeling after the death of a colleague, a fellow student, or friend recently. This can absolutely shake your core, and I do hope that you're getting the support you need instead of tucking it down and armoring. This is definitely something that you want to be able to talk about and feel heard. Maybe just being on this call, maybe it was fate to be on this call and to get these resources. So it's an opportunity to use a 24/7 support line that I'm going to share with you, or to connect with a counselor. It's important that you unpack some of that shock, that pain, that deep sadness. So please don't ignore your needs. Please be your own best friend and know what you need. And I think that's a very important thing. So let's talk a little bit about what's happened with this elevated uncertainty and the things that we have here at Rush that are able to be accessed for you at any time. The Center for Clinical Wellness, this is a conference room in the space, so you can just kind of see that it is a physical space. Yes, it is beautiful. It was created by donations of philanthropists that thought Rush needed a space to go along with their wellness program. There are counseling rooms in here and an energy pod, which I'll show you in just a moment. The idea is that it's available for you free of charge, and I'm hoping that if any of you were told that there was a cost to it, that you would let me know in the chat or an email so that we can help you understand your resources. But the idea that it's there 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Currently, it is all video visits, but it will go back at the end of February to having in-person and video visits, because I think that's really great to be able to be in very comfortable clothes in your comfortable surrounding and receive coaching. Like what better is that? These are unlimited sessions. You get a well-being coach, or you could do a mini wellness retreat, or even a cohort of yours can ask somebody from the wellness center.
Judy, we can't hear you anymore.
Times that they're available. And at the very bottom is the energy pod. It's one of our coaching there. Okay, thank you. Have that QR code that will take you to the wellness site, and about coaches, that each one of the counselors are listed with their times available, and if the time doesn't work, go to the next coach. You can see their bios, you can see their pictures. I think that's really helpful to bring you in and take a look at who's there. If any of you are worried about confidentiality, I just want to reassure you the way it's designed is pretty impressive. You come in by appointment or you do a Zoom call. You are able to come in to a private waiting room, a one-person waiting room that takes one-way flow of traffic right into your coaching session, and then you leave out a common exit. The documentation is not my chart, it's not Epic, it's definitely private, and so I think, again, that's another way to protect your confidentiality if that's something that's been holding you back a little bit. So definitely take advantage of that. What I do also want to show you is there is a second option that's offered. So on the left-hand side is the Center for Clinical Wellness. That's what I was talking about, the 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. Unlimited sessions, no charge. In addition, we have a Rush Wellness Assistance Program, which is kind of like the traditional EAP. It's operated by a company we contract with called Perspectives, and they're 24/7. So you would call them or text them. The difference here is that it's 5 sessions, so there is a limit, 5 sessions, and then you're moved over to your long-term provider, your insurance. The unique part about this is it is available to immediate family and significant others. So if you have a family member who is struggling and needs some coaching or just needs some reorganization or recentering, they can take advantage of that while you're at the same time taking advantage of the Center for Clinical Wellness. So those things are very important to know that that exists. We also have a pager. If you or a colleague are just not feeling yourself and you need to check in with somebody to see what resources are available, you can use this 24/7 pager. For those of you who are Bulls fans, you'll remember 23 is a special number. So 85-23-23, 24/7. And within 60 minutes, somebody from the center will get in touch with you, talk with you about what the concerns are, and then be able to give you resources to help you with that, whether they're immediate or the next day. So very important that you have that kind of on a post-it note somewhere, 85-23-23, to be able to access that whenever you need it. There is also an algorithm. This is especially for leadership that, if you have someone that is in crisis and danger, immediately call 911. Do not wait. If there is something that you need 24/7, that is the Wellness Assistance Program, that 24/7 number, which is there on the QR code. If you yourself are feeling overwhelmed, you're not sure what to do, that's when you call the 85-23-23 to talk with somebody within an hour. And then if you just want wellness to support your department, or kind of like this with the university, to get in touch with the Wellness Center, and we can come out and address any of the wellness issues that might be challenging your group. Right? All right, as we get to the end, I've just got it down another QR code that brings you back to the Wellness Assistance Program again, just one more time for that Inside Rush. On that are a lot of links. These recordings are on there, so if you want to go back a couple months and look, these recordings are there as well as other things that we've recorded. So the Wellness Month is on there. The newsletters that come out monthly is on there. The link to Yoga Works that right now is free for Rush employees and students, that if you go to that, it'll show you how to get into Yoga Works. So I think that's a really good thing. If you've ever wanted to dabble in yoga, you could do that. And just to wrap up, I want you to really give yourself the gift of time to be able to go to the Rush Wellness website and see what Rush can offer you, to be able to take advantage of some of the things that can support your well-being. And when you think about those things that you said you would do, you put it in the word cloud, right? So then it's true that you're gonna hydrate more, or you're gonna try to add a little bit more time to your sleep or your bedtime routine, or take a deep breath, kind of thing. To be able to make sure that you have that sense of safety and what you need for that. Use those calming techniques and create a strategy beyond hope. That's a really important thing, that you have more of a plan beside hope. Hope is good, but you got to have a plan behind it. So we did talk about all 5 pillars of your well-being today. And I will do the 5 minutes of relaxation for anybody who wants to stay on. So I'm hoping there are a couple of you that are able to do that. Peg, thanks again for mantras, definitely. It is good to have a mantra. I like yours. Hers says, step by step in the dark, if your foot isn't wet, you found the stone. I like that. So you can use any mantra that is something that's calming for you, and that's good. So I appreciate all the things that you've added to the chat. It's just made this much richer. And I want to, again, tell you that for those of you who can stay on, I want to go ahead and get started with that guided relaxation that takes 5 minutes. For those of you who need to get back to class or to your work, please have a calm rest of your day, and just take one moment to take that deep breath before you head out. All right, so thank you. Clearing. Flat on the floor. Allow yourself to soften those shoulders, bring them down. If they hurt when you soften them, that's because you've had them up too high for too long. So allow them to soften. hands in your lap. Let your eyes go down to the floor or close them. And start by taking a deep breath through your nose and out through your mouth. Move that to your belly as you breathe in. That will give you more relaxation. Belly breathing. Move your thoughts to your feet. What I'd like you to do is curl your toes like you're curling around a pencil. Lift up your toes with your heels on the ground. Hold it for a moment. Allow your feet to go flat and relax that pencil. Again, curl your toes around that pencil. Lift up with heels on the ground. Take a breath in. And exhale. Feet are flat. And release that pencil. This time, as you curl your toes, keep your feet flat. And tighten your calves and thighs. Tight for a moment. Breathe in. On exhale from your hips. Allow those muscle groups to relax. Do that one more time. Curl your toes. Calves and thighs. Glutes and abs, so now you're sitting up nice and tall. That's all really tight. Hold it for a moment from your hips. A deep breath. Let those muscle groups relax down to your toes. Wiggle your toes and take a deep breath. Right hand over the left side of your chair and gently pull. So you're stretching it back. Back to the center. Over on the left side. Take your left hand down to the right side and pull. Back to the center. Focus on your fist. Clench your fist, thumbs on top, hold it tight, and let your hands relax. Again, fists are tight, thumbs on top. Put your elbows into your sides so that upper and lower arms are tight. Hold it. Soften those shoulders, take that breath, and let those muscles relax. Open your hands. One more time here. Clench your fists, thumbs on top, arms are tight, shoulders are up. Hold them up as tight as you can. Now thinking about your shoulder blades and engaging your shoulder blades, roll your shoulders back. Really make a good circle with those shoulders. Relaxing your arms, opening your hands, stretching your fingers, and taking a deep breath. Focus on your shoulders, your neck actually, for your right ear over your right shoulder, and allow that gentle stretch. Get back to the center. Your left ear over to that left shoulder. Get back to the center. If you were doing this at the end of the night, you would repeat everything twice. That will definitely help relax. Bring your chin forward. Make sure your shoulders are down. Back to the center. Allow your head to go back. Stretch your jaw. And take a deep breath as you come back to the center. Last muscle group is your face. So on your facial muscles, I'd like you to clench your jaw, purse your lips, so that you have a really good purr. Then from the center of your lips, let that muscle group relax. Do that again, clench your jaw, purse your lips. Clench, also bring your cheeks and your eyes. Tighten your eyes really tight. Hold your lips tight, hold your jaw tight just for a moment. Get breath in, then relax. Last time here, clench your jaw, purse your lips, eyes are tight, eyebrows, forehead, everything squished to the middle of your face, a really good pucker going. Hold it for a moment, take a breath in, and on your exhale, raise your eyebrows, open your jaw, breath. Then finally, just allow your arms to come forward in a stretch. Put your hands over your head, grabbing your right wrist with your left hand and pulling it to the side. Then do the other hand. Right hand is grabbing your left wrist, pull it to the side. Bring your hands behind you. Take that deep breath. And your hands back to the front in your lap. Eyes are closed. That calming vision back in your eyes and your image. Breath and give yourself 10 seconds before you have to go back to your day. Thank you to all that joined us today. Really appreciate your time and attention and definitely appreciate your comments. I will check the end of the chats now, but thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.